Hi, I'm Hinckley. I'm a PhD student at Carnegie Mellon University. So on behalf of my amazing collaborators, Jacob, Stephanie, Zoe, Nata, Yang, and Shafik, I'm here to present our work, When and Why Do People Want Ad Targeting Explanations? Evidence from a 4-week mixed method field study. So online behavior advertising is an approach to use personal information about user to target ads. And people are concerned about how their personal data is collected and used for such advertising approach. Such concern largely coming from the result of the lack of transparency in the process of ad targeting. So here's a quick overview of how ad targeting works. So let's say an advertiser wants to promote their coffee brewer to potential customers through advertisement, but they may not know who actually needs coffee equipment, right? So a common way for them to do so is to go to ad brokers who profit from strategic advertising such as Twitter and Facebook. And these ad brokers utilize their own platforms to distribute ads to users who may be interested in getting a coffee brewer. And their targeting advertising strategy is backed with a sophisticated data pipeline to track the data and online behavior of their users, create profiles of users based on the data, and target the user profile with the promoted content. And indeed, from end user perspective, these tracking and targeting can be concerning because these are normally done in a covert manner. A statistical approach to improve ad targeting transparency is through ad targeting explanations, which provide layman explanations for why users see certain ads. And for example, Facebook and Twitter provide users specific descriptions of potential inferred interests and profiles used for specific ad targeting upon user requests, such as their age and location. Nevertheless, we took a reflective approach and wondered, are these explanations designed to cater users' actual concern about ad targeting? Specifically, we feel that there are two crucial aspects in such explanation that the current design neglects. That is, when and why user wants such explanations. Answering the when question is important because user might see many ads, and not all of them weren't concerned. Thus, we wouldn't want to show ad explanation for every single ad. And answering the why question is also important to craft explanation with information that user want to see about ads that weren't concerned. So to fill this gap, we ask, when do people want ad targeting explanations, and why do they want ad targeting explanations? To answer our research questions, we collect users' ads that actually encounter while browsing the web, as well as other context data through our browser extension we built for the study. So we use the experiment sampling method, or short for ESM. That is, when an ad was sampled by our browser extension, we will send a notification on the browser to inform our participants. And by clicking on that notification, participants will be redirected to an ad questionnaire interface in the browser and complete a short questionnaire that asks about that specific ad. And these questions include such as whether they want to know more about why they received the ad, also include users' ad viewing context, such as the content of the ad and the physical location when they're seeing the ad, as well as users' subjective perceptions toward the ad, like users believe about the ad being creepy or unexpected, or their beliefs about what data were being used to target them. And finally, for users' factors, we hypothesize that participants' personality traits and their general attitude towards security and privacy will affect their baseline desire in terms of whether they want ad explanations. Thus, we ask them to fill out a user factor questionnaire before the start of the field study. So to briefly summarize our mixed method study, to understand when do users want ad explanations, we conduct an ESM study with 60 participants for 4 weeks, and to collect their pre-study user factor questionnaire as well as their ESM data. And then we create explanatory regression models correlating participants' desire for ad explanations with the 3 aforementioned set of factors: context, perceptions, and user. Then to understand why users want ad explanations, after the field study, we conducted semi-structured interviews with a subset of 60 participants. We use their ESM responses as a guide to ask them to explain their questionnaire responses, basically, and then qualitatively synthesize the underlying reasons of why they are interested in certain ad targeting and weren't for the others. Let's start from our quantitative finding first. When do people want ad targeting explanations? So based on our ESM data, we found that participants wanted ad explanation for about 30% of the ad that brought to their attention, analyzed from our over 4,000 ESM responses that we collected from them. So when we explore the significant factors and their effect on users' desire for ad explanations, we found that when comparing the three aforementioned types of factors, contextual, perceptual, and user, perceptual factors overall outperform the two other types of factors. So to be more specific here, the y-axis indicate the score in terms of conditional R-squared, the higher values indicating the better model fits, and the x-axis indicate the four models we built to compare the three sets of factors. So we build models with only user factors, we only contextual factors, we only perceptual factors, and when all the aforementioned factors combine. So firstly, we could see that the value of combined model achieved the best model fit. Nevertheless, when we take a closer look and see that the three factors were combined, the model fit only increased modestly compared to the models built with only the perceptual factors. So in short, our findings suggest that the perceptual factors, such as whether people feel that the ad is creepy or unexpected, were the most strongly correlated with participant desire for ad targeting explanations. So in the paper, we also take a closer look at the effective contextual and perceptual factors in the models. For more details, please check the paper. So now move on to our second research question of why do people want or now want ad targeting explanations? So based on our interview data, we identify key reasons of why our participants want or now want ad targeting explanations, and I'll highlight a subset of them in this presentation. So overall, we found that participant preconceptions and perception of ad and its targeting play an important role here. So the preconceptions here refer to users' mental model of how they were targeted by a specific ad. And the perceptions, on the other hand, refer to users' feeling about the content of the ad. So to start with, we found that our participants wanted ad explanation to test their preconceptions about ad targeting. So some participants mentioned how their browsing history and activity might have impacted the ad they saw. For example, this participant wondered if his visiting and purchasing activity of vague products were being tracked. And there are also preconceptions related to users' mental models of how targeting ad work, or what prior work called the folk model of ad targeting. For example, some participants expressed mental model of their ad targeting associated with some sort of data breaches ensuring by first-party websites. So here, a participant was concerned about what exactly was shared among these first-party websites and wondered if they are selling data to each other. Some participants also shared a folk model of advertiser listening to their physical world conversations and felt such conversations are collected and used for ad targeting. So here, a participant shared that she never looked up this taco on her computer, but they verbally talked about it. So she was curious about what information was crossed over for her to see it. Some participants expressed this desire to gain more agency and autonomy, or in other words, to have control over their own information used by ad targeting through the explanations. So for example, a participant mentioned he is curious on how the ad drew from his metadata so that he can do something, delete all the stuff, and never see that again. Now let's switch gears to some examples when participants didn't want ad targeting explanations. So we found that some participants didn't want ad explanations because they had a confident understanding of how they were targeted by a specific ad. So in this example, the participant perceived a clear link between an ad and his search history, browsing history, and online shopping about books. Again, building on top of user preconceptions and perceptions, they also did not want ad explanations because a sense of helplessness and resignation. Here, a participant specifically pointed out a lack of accountability for ad targeting and how ad explanation would still provide him with no agency to make changes. He thought that the advertiser would collect his data anyways. So we talked about how subjective perceptions determine when and why users want ad targeting explanations. But to a certain extent, our findings can be discouraging to the current development of ad targeting explanations because we can't directly measure users' perceptions. Still, even if subjective perceptions could not be automatically captured and used, our findings pinpoint how the current one-size-fits-all approach for ad targeting explanations did little to curb users' concerns, and the alternative designs must be explored. So based on our findings, we suggest a design space of how to craft explanations that better cater to what people decide to know in terms of when and why. I'd like to highlight two design implications here, which demonstrate the design possibility of incorporating the when and why aspects in the design of ad explanations. So to design for when, ad explanation can be more proactive. So the existing ad transparency approach, such as ad targeting ad icon, have been found to be a bit imperceptible and be easily ignored by users. Also, our findings suggest that ad explanation can be designed to be more proactive in scenarios that elicit end-user privacy concerns. So future work could potentially explore allowing users to create their self-defined rules for when they want ad targeting explanations. So for example, to allow users to create a 9-rule-based algorithm that explanation will be actively pushed to end user for ads that say use fine-grained location information. And to design for why, our results suggest that ad targeting explanation should be designed to increase users' agency and autonomy. And indeed, we found that in many use cases, solely providing explanation is not enough, and users want suggestion that could actually act on. So future ad explanation design can be paired with suggested privacy controls to allow users to change unsettling data collections and inferences. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Thanks so much for that great talking.
Thank you.
Questions? One thing that I was wondering about is that, so you showed some examples of these explanations from Facebook and Twitter, and they look very different. And I'm curious whether you feel that the design of how this is presented has had an effect, does have an effect, whether based on your research or...
Yeah, that's a good question. So to be clear, we actually didn't directly ask participants to, or even ask about them, whether you actually check why I'm seeing this ad kind of feature, right? So it's called why these ad on Twitter. So, but based on our findings, I feel like the content probably still matter more, right? For example, I know that Facebook actually did some iteration in terms of the design, how they actually present information. But my argument is still that they're just presenting certain information. I'll say that the content-wise, it doesn't really change too much. So I guess in terms of the layout, it probably matters in terms of how users actually navigated through those information. But my argument is those information didn't really curb their actual interest or curiosity in terms of why they actually, why they actually receive these ads.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, great work, very detailed. I wanted to know what did you analyze, particularly the dark patterns of these advertisements, and what were the user insights to it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So to be clear, we don't really analyze the content of the ad. So we sort of like using as a factor that whether they. So one specific thing we actually look into is the topic, but we don't really look into the dark pattern. But something may be correlated to that is because we actually analyze, sort of like collecting their perceptions, right? So it could be potentially interesting to actually look into, for example, different topics, and those perception correlation may actually exist. That's actually a really cool direction to go toward. Yeah.
This is so good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I think given that it's lunchtime, we'll end there, but let's thank Hank one more time and all the other speakers as well.